I wasn't there when she said it. I wasn't sipping mimosas on that sun-drenched patio, while she laughed louder than necessary and leaned into the kind of smugness that comes too easy when you think no one important is listening. But I heard about it 2 days later. Apparently, they were 3 glasses deep. It was brunch at that modern farmhouse place she liked, overpriced eggs, whitewashed wood walls, and just enough artificial greenery to feel curated. She was with her 2 closest friends. One of them, someone I used to trust without thinking, would eventually tell me the truth. But not yet. The line came out of her mouth like a punchline, sharp and casual. I mean, worst case, I've always got him as a backup plan. That's what she said. Just like that. Like I was a rainy day fund, a dusty spare tire in the trunk she hoped she'd never need but wasn't ready to throw out. She raised her wine glass right after, smiling, maybe expecting a laugh. One of her friends apparently gave a polite chuckle. The other looked uncomfortable, said nothing. That would have been the end of it, I suppose, if it weren't for the weight those words carried once they reached the wrong ears. Mine. When I did hear about it, it came delivered not with malice, but with caution, quiet, almost apologetic. But even softened, it landed like concrete in the chest. I remember sitting at our kitchen island that night, reheating leftovers while she texted someone from the couch. She smiled at her screen. Didn't look up once. I stirred the pasta. Tried not to let my hands shake. Tried not to imagine the tone she used when she said it. Backup plan. Like I was a career she never wanted but kept applying to, just in case. And the worst part? I couldn't ask. Not yet. I had no context, no evidence, nothing but a second-hand account of a drunken brunch. If I confronted her then, she'd shrug it off, say it was a joke, accuse me of being sensitive, maybe even spin it as insecurity. So I stayed silent. That night in bed, she reached for me half-heartedly. I played asleep. Her hand lingered on my arm for a moment, then slipped away. She rolled over. I stared at the ceiling for hours. I'd always assumed we were building something, maybe not perfect, but real, durable, the kind of bond that withstood friction and fatigue. Now I wasn't so sure. Maybe to her, I wasn't the house. Maybe I was just the fire escape. It came in the form of a text, simple, unassuming. Hey, can we talk for a sec? Just you and me. It was from Ava, one of her brunch friends, the quieter one. I hadn't heard much from her since the wedding, maybe the occasional birthday message or social like, but she and my wife had stayed close. Closer than I realized, apparently. We met in the corner of a coffee shop the next day. Neutral ground. She looked uncomfortable, hands wrapped tight around her drink, eyes darting toward the windows like she was waiting for someone to walk in and catch her. I probably shouldn't say anything, she started, her voice low. But what she said at brunch, it didn't sit right with me. I didn't say anything. Just waited. She hesitated, then went on. She said, half laughing, but not really joking, worst case, I've always got him as a backup plan. There it was again. Same words, this time without the filter of gossip or misremembered tone. It hit harder than I expected. Even coming from Ava, who didn't seem to have a mean bone in her body, it landed like betrayal wrapped in cotton. She really said that? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Ava nodded, eyes down. I thought maybe she didn't mean it, but the way she said it, it wasn't just a joke. It sounded like something she believed, like she'd thought about it before. I sat back, heart pacing with a cold, steady rhythm. Thanks for telling me, I said. I meant it. Even if it burned. She looked up, uncertain. You're a good guy. I've always thought that. I couldn't hear that and not say anything. I left that coffee shop with a strange stillness inside. No anger yet. Just silence. Like my mind had switched into another gear. Cool, mechanical. I didn't mention it to my wife that night. She kissed my cheek when I got home. Asked if I wanted takeout, or if I was in the mood to cook. Her voice was light, normal. Maybe even sweet. I chose takeout. Sat across from her at the table while she scrolled through her phone, laughing at something someone posted. She offered to show me the screen but didn't turn it around. I nodded, uninterested. And the entire time, I kept thinking, backup plan. I remembered how she used to look at me, back when we couldn't keep our hands off each other, when every future plan had, we, in it, not I. Now, it all felt curated, like she was going through the motions while keeping her options open. And maybe that's all I was now, an option. But not for long. Once you hear something like that, you can't unhear it. It seeps into everything. Her voice. Her silences. The way she checks her reflection a little longer before heading out. The tone she uses when she talks about the future. Tentative, non-committal, like someone keeping their calendar open just in case something better comes along. I started noticing what I hadn't let myself notice before. She mentioned reconnecting with an old colleague. Casual, tossed in over dinner one night as she scrolled through her phone. Funny, Andrew from my old team messaged me. Haven't talked to him in forever. She smiled at the screen, not at me. Something about the way she said his name stuck in my throat. Not the name itself, but the ease. Like he'd never really been gone. Like this wasn't a new message at all, just a thread she'd been quietly pulling all along. Then there were the phrases. Options. Keeping things open. She'd say them offhandedly, talking about jobs, plans, life, but they felt pointed now. Sharp edges hiding in soft tones. You never know, she said once, after I asked if she still wanted to take that trip we planned months ago. It's good to have options. Options. I was starting to hate that word. I began to rewind conversations in my head, dissecting them like a forensic analyst. There was that moment at dinner 2 weeks ago when I joked about finally buying that lake property we used to dream about. She smiled thinly, then shrugged. Let's not lock anything in yet. At the time, I brushed it off. Now, it played back with a different weight. Even her affection had changed. She still kissed me goodbye in the morning, but it felt like someone signing off an email they barely skimmed. Love you, she said one night, distracted, eyes on her laptop. I replied the same, but in my gut I knew we were no longer saying the same thing. And yet, I wasn't ready to accuse. Not without proof, not without clarity. I didn't want to blow up my life based on half-truths and gut feelings. That's what a desperate man does. I wasn't desperate. Not yet, so I watched. I waited. I started paying closer attention, not to catch her, but to understand what she was already telling me through her indifference, through her comfort. Because comfort is the enemy of truth, and she was too comfortable treating me like a backup. That would change. Quietly. Strategically. She just didn't know it yet. I didn't say a word. Not even when the signs started to stack up like a carefully rigged deck. Instead, I adjusted. She thought she knew how I moved, when I left for work, when I came home, how I relaxed when I let things go. And for years, she'd been right. But when trust fades, routine becomes a weakness, so I broke mine, quietly. I began leaving earlier in the morning, coming home slightly later, shifting meetings to the evenings, just to watch how she responded. She never asked why. Not once. That said enough on its own. She kept leaning on me, though. Still expected me to fund her yoga classes, pay her half of the rent, pick up groceries when she forgot. And she always remembered to be sweet the day after she made a mess. That was her rhythm. Disengage, then drop affection just enough to reset the meter. I started charting it like a pattern. Disinterest on Monday, apology coffee on Tuesday, cold shoulder on Thursday, affectionate text on Friday. I watched the cycle on loop, week after week. She'd still say things like, "You're too good to me," usually with a small smile and a sip of wine, right after she dropped a casual favor into my lap. Like she was both grateful and aware of the imbalance, but too comfortable to change it. Or maybe too confident I wouldn't call her on it. I didn't call her on it. I just kept listening, watching, and in between I remembered. I remembered the way she used to be hungry for my time. The way she'd asked me about my day before I had the chance to offer. How she once stood in the kitchen at midnight, barefoot and wrapped in my sweatshirt, talking about all the places we'd traveled together. Now she scrolled through real estate apps on her phone, liked luxury apartments she'd never shown me, saved them quietly under anonymous labels. I noticed because I started checking our shared tablet when she forgot to log out. There were no messages, not yet. But the distance was already there, just dressed in civility. That's the dangerous kind. The kind that lets you pretend things are fine while the floorboards rot underfoot. So I kept my voice calm, my habits predictable. I played the part she was used to, supportive, dependable, present. But behind the scenes, I was building a different version of myself. Not a backup plan. An exit strategy. It was a Thursday night. I remember because I'd made reservations. Not fancy. Just that small place near the harbor we used to go to before life got cluttered. I'd booked it as a surprise, thinking maybe, just maybe, she'd meet me halfway. She didn't show. A text buzzed in 20 minutes before we were supposed to meet. Work emergency. Can't make it. Sorry. I stared at the message for a long moment. The emoji made it worse. Lazy affections slapped on like duct tape over a cracked windshield. I didn't reply. Didn't cancel the table either. I sat alone. The waiter didn't ask questions. Maybe he thought I was stood up. He wasn't wrong. When I got home, her car wasn't in the driveway. I checked her shared calendar out of habit. She always kept it meticulous, down to color-coded meetings and workout slots. That night? Blank. No work calls, no late meetings, no scheduled emergencies. She came home close to midnight. Her heels hit the hardwood softly, like she was trying not to wake me. I was at the kitchen table, scrolling through an old project file, laptop still glowing. She didn't expect to see me up. "Oh, hey," she said, startled, then quickly smiled. "Didn't think you'd still be awake." I didn't answer right away. My eyes tracked her. Her hair was pinned differently. There was a faint shimmer on her collarbone, glitter maybe, and the unmistakable scent of champagne, faint but there. Not office air, not stress. Celebration. She moved past me quickly, said something about grabbing a shower. Her purse buzzed on the counter. That's when I saw it. A preview flash on her screen. A message from a name I didn't recognize. First name only. Casual. The text read. "Last night was..." She snatched the phone fast. Locked the screen with a flick, too smooth to be innocent. I didn't ask who it was. Didn't mention the message. I just nodded slightly and went back to the laptop. Because at that point, I didn't need to catch her in the act. I just needed confirmation that the act had already started. And now, I had it. I didn't touch her phone. That would have been reckless, too obvious, too easy to explain away with outrage. But I knew something most people forget. Digital carelessness isn't just about phones. It's about what we leave open, what we sync, what we back up automatically without thinking. She was good at hiding things from me, but not from her devices. Her laptop sat on the kitchen counter the next morning. She'd left in a hurry. Work meeting, she claimed. I waited 10 minutes after the door clicked shut, then opened the laptop and typed in the password she'd never bothered to change. Still our anniversary date. The irony wasn't lost on me. Messages were clean. Nothing obvious. But her browser told a different story. There were open tabs for flights, one-way, flexible dates, luxury apartments in neighborhoods she'd never mentioned liking. But more than that, her cloud photo sync was still active, automatically backing up images from her phone to the shared drive we used back when we still planned things together. There weren't many photos. Just enough to tell the story. 2 wine glasses across from hers at a candlelit table. A blurred man's arm just in frame. A mirror photo taken in what looked like a hotel room. Nothing revealing, but the look on her face said more than the setting ever could. A recent one showed her smiling in a way I hadn't seen in over a year. Effortless, unguarded. That smile wasn't for me. I opened her DMs. She hadn't logged out. Messages with a name that matched the one from the late-night preview. They didn't cross any visible lines, nothing that could be used as proof. But the way they interacted made the actual words irrelevant. One line stuck with me. "I just want to be sure before I make any big changes. I don't want to do anything regrettable." I wasn't anyone. I was just a placeholder in her risk calculation. An emotional placeholder while she evaluated her so-called options. She hadn't left yet, but she was preparing the exit, testing the ground before jumping. And I realized in that moment, I wasn't the husband anymore. I was the fallback plan. The one you don't abandon until you're certain someone else will catch you. I closed the laptop, put it exactly where I found it, and poured myself a glass of water with hands that didn't shake anymore. Now I had more than a comment. I had intent. And I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of being the one to choose when the fall would come. It was a week later when Ava reached out again. This time, her message didn't ask for a meeting. It just said, "I think you should know what else," she said. We met at the same quiet coffee shop, tucked away from the noise. Ava didn't waste time. No small talk, no smiles. She said, "You're safe," she began, her fingers curling around the cup like she needed something to hold on to. "Not exciting. Not the kind of person you leave unless you're absolutely sure someone better is waiting." My jaw didn't clench. My hands didn't move. I just sat there, letting the words press down like slow, calculated pressure on a bruise already forming beneath the skin. "She said that if it doesn't work out with whoever he is, she still has you. Because you'd never walk away first." I nodded once, slow. Not in agreement, just in recognition. That's all I needed. A final confirmation from the only person in that room who didn't know I was already planning my exit. I thought maybe she was just venting, Ava said, her voice quieter now. But then I saw how she talked about him, and how she talks about you. It's different. And not fair. I looked at her then. Really looked. Not as my wife's friend, but as someone who'd just chosen to do the harder, messier thing. Tell the truth when it would have been easier to stay out of it. Thank you, I said simply. She nodded. There was a sadness in her eyes that mirrored my own. Maybe not the same shape, but the same weight. Driving home, I didn't feel betrayed anymore. That stage had passed. This wasn't heartbreak. It was disillusionment. And clarity. I didn't need to see another message. Didn't need another suspicious calendar entry or late-night lie. Because the final piece wasn't what my wife had done. It was how confidently she believed I'd never do anything about it. She miscalculated. That night, we had dinner like usual. She asked if I'd picked up the dry cleaning. I said I had. She smiled, thanked me, told me how thoughtful I was. And in that moment, I knew exactly who I was. I was the storm she didn't see coming. I didn't change everything overnight. That would have been too obvious, too loud. And she wasn't paying close enough attention anyway. Instead, I withdrew with precision. No more planning weekend getaways or asking if she wanted to check out that new restaurant downtown. No more texts just to say I was thinking of her. I stopped offering to fix things around the house, stopped refilling her favorite coffee pods, stopped picking up her dry cleaning unless she asked directly. The first week, she didn't notice. By the second, she hesitated when I didn't kiss her goodbye in the morning. By the third, she started offering small gestures again, bringing home pastries I used to like, asking if I wanted to go for a walk. Her attempts felt rehearsed, like she was retracing old steps on a stage she forgot how to perform on. I stayed polite, calm, detached. She asked one night, after dinner, "Are we okay?" I looked up from the book I wasn't really reading. "Sure." "Why?" She smiled a little too quickly. "Just feels like you've been quiet lately." I nodded once. "Just thinking a lot." She didn't push. She never did when she didn't want answers she couldn't manage. Meanwhile, I was preparing. I reviewed financials, shifted my direct deposits to a separate account she didn't have access to, started cataloging our shared assets, reviewing what was in whose name. Not because I was scared, because I refused to walk away unarmed. I contacted a real estate agent under a separate email address. Quiet inquiries about temporary rentals, short-term leases, furnished units. I wasn't leaving in a rush. I was moving with purpose. She still smiled at me over dinner, still leaned her head on my shoulder while we watched old movies, the same way she used to when she cared. But now I felt the weight of it differently. It wasn't affection. It was convenience. One night, while she was brushing her teeth, I opened her closet and started a mental inventory of what she'd take when she finally left. I wasn't being cruel. I was just adjusting to the math of it all. If she was preparing for a future without me, I needed to stay 3 steps ahead. And the strangest part? I didn't feel broken. I felt awake. The illusion was gone. What remained was strategy. She had been preparing for a new life quietly. Now so was I. The fundraiser was one of those events we used to attend together. Cocktail dresses, catered hors d'oeuvres, polite laughter over plastic flutes of champagne. She RSVP'd for both of us months ago. But when the night came, I showed up alone. I wore the tailored charcoal suit she once said made me look dangerously competent. The same one she hadn't complimented in over a year. I arrived on time, calm and composed, heads turned, not because of some dramatic entrance, but because absence draws attention. Everyone expected her on my arm. Ava was there. She saw me first. She crossed the room with quiet urgency and stopped beside me with a nod of approval. "You look good," she said, eyes scanning the room. "Confident. I feel it," I replied. And I meant it. People noticed the difference. Colleagues, friends, even casual acquaintances. There's a particular silence people hold when they sense something's changed but don't want to be the first to ask. I gave them nothing to feed on, just smiles and firm handshakes. Later, while I stood near the bar, someone asked where my wife was. I could have offered a dozen excuses. Instead, I looked them in the eye and said evenly, "She's making other plans, so am I." The words didn't feel dramatic. They felt honest. I caught glimpses of conversations shifting. Whispers. Curious glances. Some offered sympathy. Others offered numbers. One man asked if I was seeing someone new. I let the question hang for a beat, then smiled. I'm just no one's backup anymore. Ava overheard that. Her expression was unreadable at first, then softened into something like respect. By the time I left the event, the narrative had already begun to shift. I wasn't the one being left behind. I was the one stepping forward. And the best part? She had no idea. Not yet. It was a Tuesday evening when she noticed the drawer was empty. I was in the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of water, when I heard her voice from the bedroom, too sharp to be casual, too controlled to be panicked. Hey, did you move your stuff? I didn't answer right away. I walked into the room slowly, leaned against the doorframe. Her hand was still on the drawer handle, like she expected it to refill itself if she kept staring. I started packing, I said simply. Her eyebrows pinched. Packing? For what? For moving out. She blinked, like the words didn't quite compute. Wait, what? You're moving out? Why? I didn't raise my voice. Because I've made new plans, and none of them involve being someone's second option. Her face went pale. What are you talking about? Where is this coming from? That's when she stepped toward me, softening her tone, pulling out every stitch of affection she thought might still hold weight. If something's wrong, we can talk about it. I didn't know you felt this way. I almost admired how quickly she tried to stage the damage, how instinctively she pivoted into concern. But the performance was late. The house lights had already come up. You didn't know, I repeated quietly. Even after all those conversations you had behind my back? After everything you said about me at brunch? To him? To Ava? She froze. 1 beat. 2. Then her voice cracked. That's not fair. You're twisting things. I never meant. I cut in gently. No. You meant them. That's the problem. She followed me out of the room, questions spilling into the hallway. Who told you? Was it Ava? What else did she say? Why would she? She didn't betray you, I said. You did. Her voice fell to a whisper. I made a mistake. I turned to face her fully. No. You made a series of decisions. All calculated. All deliberate. She tried one more time. We can fix this. I want to fix this. But I'd already made my choice. My name was off the lease. The utilities were scheduled to transfer. My bank accounts were secure. My future was already in motion. And hers? Well, she was finally alone with her options. The same friend who once sat next to her at brunch now ignored her calls. Ava had stopped replying. The social tide was shifting, and she could feel it. She was the one on standby now. And I wasn't looking back. She called again the next night. And the night after that. At first, her voice was composed, measured concern with a hint of panic tucked beneath the surface. By the third call, it was desperation. I let them ring out, voicemail after voicemail, each one shorter than the last, until silence became her last message. Then came the text. I made a mistake. Please talk to me. Just once. I waited until morning to respond. I didn't know her urgency. We met in a public park, not far from where we used to walk together before Sunday brunches turned into separate afternoons, and we became her safety net. She looked different. Not disheveled, just rattled. Like someone who finally understood the locks had changed and the keys she always carried no longer fit. I don't know what to say, she started, her voice fragile. Start with the truth, I said, my tone flat but not unkind. She took a breath, then exhaled a tremble. I got caught up in something. I didn't know what I wanted. I thought I had time. You did, I said. But you used it shopping for something better. She winced. I never stopped loving you. I gave her that one. I let the silence sit between us long enough to let her hope flicker. Then I answered. That may be true. But you didn't act like it. And at some point, love without loyalty is just a dressed-up exit strategy. Her shoulders dropped. So that's it? I nodded once. You always said I was the backup plan. So now? I'm giving you all the space you need to find your first choice. The words didn't rise. They landed. She tried again, her voice softer this time, barely audible. I don't want to lose you. I didn't respond. I stood, nodded once, and walked away before she could spin the next line. On the way home, I cut off contact for good. She wasn't the first person to misjudge quiet strength for weakness, but she'd be the last to underestimate mine. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. No more standby. No more shadow role in someone else's indecision. For the first time in a long time, I belonged entirely to myself.